What's cracking, people? It's your man, Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, representing high level technicians operating globally and beyond. So, listen, today I wanted to carry the torch, so to speak, forward and pass it around the select manosphere regarding what my top reads are. Now, I'm going to only post 10, but I would say that in terms of my development and what I found to be the most interesting reads for me currently, I'm going to present those for you today. And I'm going to also post a link to two other content contributors who really got this movement started, and that's Master Teacher BGS IBMOR and the Field Master Ron Wills. They presented their top reads, and overall, I think it's a good exercise and sharing what builds the sort of philosophy and framework for how we think, how we produce our logic sets, and how our mentors or our own master teachers have set up the framework for us and how we navigate the modern world. So I wanted to carry the torch forward. And once I'm done, I definitely want to leave this open to other people to post their top reads as well. So without further ado, honorable mention. I don't break these down in these descriptions, but honorable mentions for me would be, of course, The Art of War, The Art of Seduction, and the 48 Laws of Power. Anyway, getting into it, number 10 for me is Nathan McCall's book, Makes Me Want to Holler, which details different essays about his life growing up in the inner city as a young black male, just navigating the landscape of his time. It was a good read. It was recommended by one of my mentors way back in the day when I was young and up and coming myself. Number 9, definitely on my top 10 list, is The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. Now, what this did for me when I was younger, coming up and just trying to figure out life, is it gave me insight and perspective, because in this particular read, it was a fictional piece, but it was sort of a coming of age. And I think that in this space, when we refer to the Malik, which is the genius bruiser, we look at the Midnight character and how he got his introduction and how ultimately he got his own spin-off books from that. Number 8 is George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. Now, this one I read a long time ago, but it's always stuck with me, and thinking about how you can take anyone from any space and they can be groomed and trained and have their image sharpened so that they can be presented in other spaces. And when I thought about this, I remember, the words of the Godfather, Kevin Samuels, when he talks about the importance of image and how that can elevate and allow a person to navigate various spaces that they weren't previously privy to. But I also think about the octane model and how when we talk about how culture is a spectrum, we have to understand what makes up culture. And I know that the Master Teacher BGS is currently doing a series on culture, and I know that this is going to be brought out about how what frames our attraction, what frames our survival mechanisms, what we as men do to develop our environment, and how the women that choose us and the women that we choose use the environment that us men manipulate and take command over to produce an ecosystem within that environment. So that's a good read, I think, for people to have. Number 7 is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Now, when we talk about the 92 octanes, this particular book was a required reading for people in corporate America. It discusses business theory and the methodology of retooling brands and uh, just being able to pivot and get people in the right positions for your system or your organization. Number 6 is Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs. This is by Lisa Randall, who is a cosmologist, and basically she tells a story about a theory of how the dinosaurs became extinct by an event that happened. And her theory is that this event was sparked by movement in the cosmos by dark matter that produced dark energy that affected the chain, ultimately that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. But beyond that story, this is the presentation of the plane theory. And for those who were part of a hangout hosted by the field master a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, this subject of what is the basis of reality came up. So for myself personally, my understanding of what creates reality is that you have a plane and a background, and that's how the basis of thought occurs in a third dimensional brain to produce a multidimensional mind. Now, that's an oversimplified version of it, but for me, this book, Dark Matter and Dinosaurs, confirmed something that I had an understanding of prior to that. So I present this because, one, we talk about more than just ratchet shit, even though the ratchet shit is necessary because that's how we interact and we connect, on a personal level. But we also have to understand that the select man is multi-dimensional, is multifaceted, is a complex person. And the select manosphere is a space where you're allowed to express how complex your thought processes can be. Like I said, we talk about the ratchet, we talk about getting women, we talk about getting your body game right, getting your mouthpiece tight, working on your charisma, but there has to be a grounding and a basis and an overall framing for what makes you you. And that's what the idea behind the select manosphere was really about. It's not about putting people in a box. You're only this, object to be debated over and to be, pushed aside and to become a statistic. You are a unique, complex system capable of developing and building and expressing, unique and complex systems. And that's the overall message that we want to bring across to those who listen. Number 5 on my list is Winning by Jack Welch. Now, at the time, he was retired from GE for a while when he wrote this book. And this is another piece of required reading for those who are in the professional world or corporate America. And he gets more so into the nitty gritty of putting the right people in the right places to achieve maximum output and the best results. And just as an aside, clearly this book was written years before the uncovering of GE's practices in more recent years, and most recently this year. So, but the theories and the ideals still hold true in terms of getting the right people in the right position and vertical integration. Number 4 is Freakonomics by Stephen Levitt and Stephon Dubner. Now, this particular book is another book that was recommended by a good mentor of mine who actually is a former cabinet member, with the Obama administration, and that person's actually mentioned in this book. And the cool thing about Freakonomics is, even though some of the theories I don't really agree with, as far as the methodology for formulating these theories and how they carried it out, but I think it has some really cool concepts, and it really shows how to think outside of the box. And really, when you're looking to use data to support a thought or a theory and to really express your position, you don't have to use conventional methods in order to get your point across to your target audience. So I think it's an overall good read. Number 3 is The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Now, this book was suggested to me by a a really cool Radadai who works for the Apple Corporation. And, she and I would often debate and, give each other books to read to support where we're coming from with the debate. And just as another aside, gentlemen, when you have your select man roster in place and you have women who give you an exchange for your presence, that's how you know you've reached or you've attained a level of success in this thing called game, which I like to call tech, because the ultimate exercise in creating your equilibrium point, which is the alpha end game or the goal of a masculine master, is to surround yourself with people that give you an exchange of value for what you bring to the table. And this particular example of, this ride or die of mine who has since, just lives in California now in Silicon Valley, but when we would interact, we don't agree on everything, and that's the good thing. You want to be in a position to challenge a person, not being stubborn or bullheaded or anything, but the type of challenges that lead to growth. And gentlemen, let me tell you, the sex that comes after a good debate with an intelligent woman is unmatched. All right. Number 2. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I think this is a similar work. I think it really puts the conversation about race and relations in the modern space to the forefront. And there's a foreword by Cornel West that really is insightful. A lot of people have their own opinions about, on either side about how Cornel West presents. I leave that up to, the beholder for that one. But I think that this is an important work that really sparks healthy and necessary conversation. Finally, my number 1 pick is E equals MC square, a biography of the world's most famous equation by David Bodanis. Now, I read this book when I was in my early 20s. And what this did for me was humanize one of the most pedestalized thinkers of the modern world. And what it did was it gave a background on what led to the discovery of this particular equation. And it does go into the science, but it also goes into sort of his personal history, the personal history of Albert Einstein and the relationships that he had, sort of the insecurities that he had, how he related to people. But what this did for me philosophically was reinforce that genius can come from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're born, what you're born into, what system or society. As long as you have the tools and the basis for formulating and framing a clear thought, and then you have the ability to go out and get the language to frame and to structure and to refine that theory and that thought, but also have the intelligence enough to explain it to a child, then you have the ability to really shift paradigms and to really produce something that benefits the greater mankind. And I think that spaces like these have that potential. And so that's why I don't necessarily jump into a debate lightly, because I'd rather sit back and listen and observe and try to see where a person's logic sets are before I even engage this person. It's not out of arrogance, but it's out of an understanding and a wisdom that comes from me practicing and exercising the muscle of savviness enough to shut up and to listen to what a person or a group of people are actually saying, and being able to discern where their framing comes from, where their logic sets are, where their point of references comes from, and if those elements aren't a part of their discussion or a part of their argument, then there's no reason for me to even engage it, because they don't even have the language to formulate an original thought, let alone present a basis for a way of thinking. Most people just repeat sound bites that sound salacious, sound bites that sound provocative, but have no basis or merit in observable reality. That's why I can give props to someone who really does know their shit. Like, a master teacher BGS IBMOR, like a Ron Wills, like Kevin Samuel, or Glendon Cameron, or an Alaraja Currie, or even C Boogie, and people who just by listening to what they're saying, that they've lived this and that they've walked the talk. And those are the people that I believe are among the people that I believe bring tangible value. And that's really the basis for the select manosphere, producing tangible value. And with that, I want to put out that we start our own version of the Select Manosphere Book Club, which, once a month we offer a title that anyone can go out and grab or get an e-copy or whatever, but that we all read, and then we come back and we'll do a live stream to discuss what we discovered within the read. So I'm going to leave that out there. Put your suggestions down below and we'll chop it up next time. So as always, this is your man Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, saying stay sharp and mission focused. Later.